Hello all and welcome to the Lead Safety Workshop hosted by the Old First Ward Community Association and the Neighborhood Housing Services of South Buffalo. My name is Grace Chelik and I'm happy to introduce myself as the new outreach coordinator for the Old First Ward Community Center. Our center offers a variety of housing programs that helps members of our community. This includes city-funded programs through Bureau. And those programs include the emergency repair, 50/50 acquisition and rehab, down payment and closing cost assistance, as well as the Stand Up Buffalo tenant rental rehab program. We also facilitate programs through New York State, which include the Access to Home program and the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation Home Improvement Program. If you're interested in applying or have any questions regarding the application process, my colleagues Kirsten and Alyssa will gladly assist you. You'll find their contact information here. The Neighborhood Housing Services of South Buffalo has additional programming, which Donna will briefly review now. Take it away, Donna.
Okay, thank you. We have a weatherization program, which we've talked about before. We have the same guideline as the heating assistance program. And if you're eligible for food stamps, you are eligible for the program also. What I wanted to talk to, because you're talking about lead, is that we do practice the safe lead practices. And our crew is all certified in the lead renovation and repair. When we provide weatherization services to people, a lot of times these are obviously older homes in the city of Buffalo. And much of the paint that was used on these homes was if it was before 1978, there is lead in the paint. So what we do when we provide weatherization services, sometimes if we're replacing windows on, or a glass on a window or a glass on a door, or doing anything that might disrupt some of the paint, what we do is we take various precautions while disturbing the paint and use Swifter to wipe down the area. We use a HEPA vacuum to vacuum up any of the paint that might have gone on to other things. And we also use 6 mil poly on the floor or over furniture to keep that the dust from it. We can clean it up after we're done so that it's not in people's homes. So we contain the work area and we minimize the area with a water mist. And we also use the wet mop to clean up thoroughly. And then we take it and we throw it out and get rid of it. So that's what we do with the weatherization, so that you don't have any issues with lead in the home, or if somebody goes by and touches anything, it's not gonna, they're not gonna get lead in their hands or in their mouth or anything like that. So that's what I just wanted to speak to you about. So if you have any questions or if you'd like to apply for weatherization, you can contact us at 837-0071, or go to the call the South Park office at 823-3630, or email us at info@nhssouthbuffalo.org, or go to our website, which is listed right there. Okay.
Thank you, Donna. I'm happy to introduce Michael Ramos from the City of Buffalo Department of Permits and Inspections. Michael works as the lead outreach and education specialist, providing essential information to residents about the hazards of lead, as well as the programming available to help homeowners and renters with lead hazards in their home. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you for the introduction. It's one of the best I've heard so far in the last year and a half. So if PowerPoint's on, yep, great. So lead hazard control and proactive rental inspections, we'll be talking about those two things as they connect for this year, specifically what we have going on. If we can move to the next slide, that'd be great. So lead poisoning occurs when lead builds up in the body, often over months or a year. It could happen, we'll get into details of how that can happen. Small amounts of lead can cause serious health problems. Children younger than the age of 6 years old are specifically vulnerable. Impaired mental and physical development can happen. And lead poisoning can even be fatal at very high levels. Current health standards for lead poisoning, New York State, it was 10 micrograms. Now it's 5 5 micrograms, where New York State takes action, and that is from 2019 to current. Erie County was a little bit more proactive when it came to that, and they lowered their standards of taking action when it comes to a child testing positive for lead, and it was at 5,000 5 micrograms. Another reason lead is how would you say, is it's seriously fatal is one thing is the let me just continue the next slide. I'm sorry, getting off track over here. Why is lead poisoning still a problem? Exposure sources, older homes, that's the big driver of them. Deteriorating housing stock is why we focus on rehab homes in the city, and which challenges of maintaining an older property, that it's very difficult, specifically in a city that has not many resources. Contaminated soil, that's big. Specifically during demos, the city of Buffalo does provide some green treatment when it comes to contaminated soil whenever they're doing any demos, just to make sure there's no lead left behind and it's been treated right. Lack of healthy homes and education, so lack of awareness on lead poisoning hazards at home. Lack of home maintenance, lack of healthy cleaning routines at home. If we can move to the next slide. So before I get into the health effects, we should know that lead is one of the oldest poisons out there, but it's also one of the things that could get into specifically could be lifelong and could be transmitted through the fetus as well. Lead, for example, my wife tested positive for low levels of lead recently, and if we were to have a kid, some of that lead would be fused through the fetus. So that's something to keep in mind. Lead stays in the body because your bones have a difficulty identifying the difference between calcium and lead. So that's when that happens. There are treatments to getting rid of lead in your body, but it's very painful, and there's plenty of videos on that where you can look into it. But those are some of the major effects and poisoning concerns you should have when dealing with lead or being concerned about lead in your home. So getting into the health effects. So with children, it's learning disabilities, trouble concentrating, hearing loss, behavioral problems, hyperactivity, developmental delays, neurological damages, intellectual impairment, loss of IQ. Most children are asymptomatic, and the damage is irreversible. But as it can be irreversible, it could be, it could also be preventable. So if we go to the next slide here, where can you find lead? So this is when we get into the more of a preventable aspect, so we can identify and know how to be safe around our home or anywhere we go for visiting family members in the city or anywhere in the county. So chipped or flaking paint dust for deteriorating lead paint. It's very common, specifically in the city, and the city does have homes. A lot of the housing stock is built before 1978. So that's why children living in pre-1978 homes are always a big concern. We always want to make sure we take action on renovations, on rehab, on getting those children tested. Dust from renovation work. So that's where Erie County comes in. We'll get into that when it comes to regards to the RIP. Adults working with certain jobs or as a hobby. I will show you examples of how a hobby can become a hazard for children in the neighborhood or their own children at home. If we can go to the next slide. So lead hazard continues. Friction surfaces, so windows going up and down. It's huge because depending on the window, a lot of the windows in the city are wood still, and they've been painted over countless of times. For example, my homes, I'll tell you, 85% of the windows in my home are all wood, and they've all been painted countless of times, and they do chip every now and then. I do take care of it, but it is a concern, and a lot of people don't mind it, but those, you can tell when there's any small flake and chip in the exterior or interior of the home, and it's a concern not to take lightly. So with that, exterior flaking lead paint can be hazardous to children playing outside, as lead paint can chip away whenever there's some scraping that's being done. If the neighbor's trying to take care of the trying to paint up their house, if the individuals that have been contracted to work on those homes are not licensed, they're probably not RRP certified, and it causes all kinds of damage to the neighborhood, not only to children playing directly outside, but that chip and flaking paint can spread throughout the neighborhood. See if we can go to the next slide. So here are some examples. If you look, just ignore the more lead sources on the side, and if you can pay attention to the screenshot over here of all these materials. So as I said before, chip paint, dirt, pewter, old furniture and toys, play and costume jewelry, and crystal glassware. And the reason is because some of those, like crystal glassware or some plates, they're all painted. And some of those materials come from exterior countries where lead is not a concern, or it hasn't been brought up as a concern. And that's why when they're shipped or imported here, you're probably eating off a plate with lead if it's painted over with some beautiful drawing. But if you go below, if you look at imported goods, so specifically it'll say Mexican candy, but anything south of the border, you could say most of those candies have some sort of lead in it because it just preserves it better. And unfortunately, those lead standards don't exist down in those countries. And I know personally, because I'm from Guatemala, so I could tell you that lead was never talked about. So glazed pottery, as I mentioned, it could go one in one with silverware or plates, and Asian, Hispanic, and Indian spices. So it just really gets specific, as sometimes those spices, if they're red or a certain color, they're mixed in with some sort of powder and lead. Home remedies, same aspect as spices. Beauty products are huge. A lot of the beauty products in exterior countries don't look into the chemicals. Even we don't as well. We don't really regulate much of those beauty products, but it's also always important to look into what is in those beauty products, because even in our country, we don't really regulate much of the chemicals that go inside those products. So if you're doing a specific job or hobby, so certain paints, hunting lead bullets. I know there's a big gun range here, and a lot of individuals go. And if you're around all that, you're breathing all that air, and you're handling lead bullets, and you're just active with it. And if you go every week, you're kind of just giving it to yourself in a way. But artist paints, it really depends on the type of paint they use. A lot of individuals like to use certain paints, just like the same reason why the housing stock before 1978 was using lead paint, because it lasts longer, it's more durable with winter. Artists will do the same thing with their paintings. They'll add all kinds of chemicals and materials to their paint, so to make their art last longer or be timeless in a way. But at the same time, it could all flake away. Traveling, so souvenirs, spices or foods, toys, jewelry. Toys are a huge thing. Every now and then you'll see in a news article there's been a big recall on specific toys that came from a specific country, and most of our toys are made in China, and there aren't that many regulations on certain areas, or when it comes to regulators just overseeing the process of how these toys are being manufactured. And it's not until we get these toys here and we test them out through the CDC that they contain lead, that's when their massive recall exists. So it's always good to be on alert that these little things can happen. And that's what's important, to be aware of what's going on and what you have in your home. So cleaning, right? That's a big preventative. So wash your hands. If you're using water, if you're drinking water out of the tap, always let the water run for a couple minutes. And when we say a couple minutes, a minute or two, just to let whatever's been sitting there overnight, just drain out. and you could probably drink safe, clean water. Specifically in the city, we do a pretty good job at keeping our water clean and testing our water out constantly. Keep your shoes outside. So the reason they'll say keep your shoes outside is just not to attract any dirt that you're bringing into the home. You really don't know where you've been, or even outside if there's any lead chips or any type of lead dust that's been accumulating over time. So you might be bringing in that home. So make sure you leave them at the door or in a little area right before you enter the home. Mop and wet wipes. Wet wipes are big, specifically with us here in the city. We give out this lead safety kit we talk about. It's a sanitizer spray. Usually it's an organic green spray with paper towel rolls, and we hand out those things in a bag with lead information, and we just go through the motions of how to properly clean your home, how to properly clean all the surfaces, not to let dust accumulate in your home, because that's a big thing in Buffalo. It's letting that dust accumulate, letting your children breathe that in, letting yourself breathe that in. It's just not good for you, not good for your health. So we want to make sure people get accustomed to every week or every other day, making sure they're cleaning out surfaces, making sure they're checking out these high friction areas. As the previous speaker mentioned, apologies, forgot your name, use a vacuum with a HEPA filter. And that's huge, specifically if you're working outside and you're painting, or you feel like there's chip flakes all around. Make sure you use a HEPA filter. If you can't afford one, you can most likely look into resources like the tool library. The tool library has many tools that's under the tool library, and it's a very inexpensive membership for the year. So I would definitely look into the tool library to see if any materials that you may need if you're going to be working on your own home are available there. And their rental policy is very reasonable. I'll tell you that because I am a member myself. So nutrition is a huge thing. So, what you eat is what you sell. But it's also good to maintain that healthy lifestyle with a healthy, balanced nutrition. If we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So lead hazards are preventable. The EPA lead renovation, repair, and painting rule, RRP, is a big thing we push here with all our contractors. It's performing the RRP projects that disturb lead-based paint in homes, child care facilities, and preschools built before 1978 must be any firm must be certified by the EPA or an EPA authorized state. Use certified renovators who are trained by the EPA approved training providers and follow lead safe work practices. So what we do as a city, on top of making sure our contractors are licensed, they must be RRP certified, or an individual on site has to hold an RRP certification to be doing any work outside in the city of Buffalo, but they also have to be licensed with the city. So that's a big thing we push for. Tom can tell you all about it. We do send a lot of landlords. They also bring in their own cited landlords when certain cases arise, and he can break that down for you folks. But the RRP is a big course that we want to push on all landlords and tenants if possible. And if you guys want to keep an ear to the ground, we'll keep you informed on potential online courses you could take with some of our certified instructors. But I'm also aware that Erie County also provides that service too. If we can go to the next slide, please. So Buffalo 311 lead line and lead inspectors. So the City of Buffalo Division of Citizen Services 311 Center, which is basically for anything city services that you need. If you call and say, I need an interior lead inspection, or having some sort of questions about lead, or want your water tested for free for lead hazards, you can always call the city's 311 line. Any lead related complaint, we will be at it. The city has the City of Buffalo or its representatives are legally authorized to inspect the exterior and interior properties for lead paint violations or hazards. We will always, if you ever receive the letter, we will always inquire a voluntary request to inspect an interior property if that case were to come up, or we would proactively send out a letter asking you as a tenant or landlord to call our city inspectors to set up an inspection or get some questions or get some answers on why you received this letter or why your property has been highlighted to need an inspection. The Department of Permits and Inspection Services has several dedicated lead inspectors. So currently we have 2 and more are in training right now. I currently in charge of the lead outreach and education aspect of it. But I also do follow-ups and referrals with other organizations that are in need a lead inspector right away the day of the next day. So that's also a resource that we provide to organizations. You can go to the next. Some lead safety resources. Get Ahead of Lead has been one of our pilot websites to get all the information out there, all our community partners out there, Erie County information out there, just to make we're trying to centralize all our lead information into one place. And the website is still we're still updating it as we speak, but it's something that's active. It's there. You can always get a number or an email out of it, and you'll find someone to contact directly. Lead 716, I like to always plug this organization. It's a local nonprofit. If it's free help for preschool children in all Erie County, with children that have already tested positive for elevated lead levels. It's early childhood intervention, so they will prepare your child for the school, for the structure of what it is to going into school. And they would, because they understand that children already have these physical and mental development disadvantages, so they will work on all those disadvantages that the child may have to make sure they can transition well into the school system. Erie County Health Department, great resources. They have their certified inspectors as well. They're very active. They get on the case, and I'll let Tom say a little bit more on why what kind of work they do. Is there any questions regarding lead that I may have gone over or skipped? No. Okay, so with that said, if we can go to the next slide, the proactive rental inspection kind of goes with, well, it does go with the whole lead outreach aspect that the city of the Department of Permits and Inspections is trying to get accomplished, and our enforcement aspect for deteriorating homes that are not habitable at the time. So background, most of the cities, counties maintain a code enforcement program to ensure the safety and welfare of all their citizens or residents. And with that, the city of Buffalo has one, and every other major city in New York State has one as well. Traditionally, these programs have always been complaint-based in response to a resident's complaints about a substandard housing condition, but complaint can be biased for fear of retaliation. So this complaint-based model is here to stay, but it's also been adjusted with a proactive rental inspection. So a proactive rental inspection is to address the substandard housing conditions that can cause or exacerbate health problems such as childhood lead poisoning, asthma, or other respiratory conditions resulting from an exposure to mold and pests and falls and other injuries, particularly to elder residents, without relying on complaints. So in short, we will be sending out, we will be proactively inspecting neighborhoods that are in need of an inspection and have never been called into our 301 line. If we can go to the next slide. So basically, we'll be proactively inspecting 1 and 2 family homes that are not owner occupied. So that was a very specific request from our community partners and advocates and comment council that non-owner occupies should be the focus on 1 and 2 family homes. In other cities, they do all kinds of housing, but we are currently just going to start with these and see where it goes, and hopefully we'll have some great progress where we can extend our ability to inspect other properties. So some localities target neighborhoods where housing code violations have occurred frequently in the past, or neighborhoods with a lot of rental properties. This program is focused on areas with a history of childhood lead poisoning. So that is our main focus, is where we're finding a growing number of childhood lead poisoning happening. Some areas it's all over the city, but there are pockets, and specifically pockets where there's renovation being done currently in the city without lead safe practices or RIP certifications. So that's why we always have our inspectors out there, our district inspectors, to be exact, driving around their areas, their assigned areas, and making sure if there's work being done, they question if they have their city license and the RIP certified, just to make sure these things are actually a concern on the workplace. Other PRR programs focus on specific types of properties, such as multi-unit housing complexes. Most programs exempt certain types, so that's what we're doing, of properties from inspections. So such as owner-occupied properties, government regulated or subsidized housing, or newly constructed housing. So again, it goes back to any home before 1978 is free to get inspected, unless they have provide some proof of being up to code, up to renovation standards, or there hasn't been any complaint out there. If you can go to the next slide. So key exceptions from the PRI. Registration of rental properties. So in order to know what rental properties exist or who owns the most most programs require property owners to register their rental properties or obtain a certificate or license in order to rent a housing unit. So that is where our 1 and 2 families fall into. We do have a universe of about 22 plus properties in the rental registration universe, but some do fall through the cracks. But with our proactive rental inspection program, those that have fallen into the cracks, we will be able to get those properties into compliance, into our rental registration universe, and make sure those landlords, those tenants that are living in those homes are living in properly maintained homes and are in safe conditions, because that's what we care about. Regularly scheduled inspections. All rental properties are subject to the program are inspected on a periodical basis, generally once every 2 to 5 years. And as an incentive to landlords, many programs allow less frequent inspections or self-certifications once a property owner establishes a record of code compliance. So our current goal right now is, once we get the PRI program going, we will send out a giant mailer informing everybody about the PRI program. And in that mailer, there'll be a self-certification pamphlet where a landlord will be able to go around and see what our inspectors look for, and make sure they can get those renovations done, and then they can provide us with proof and send us their self-certification in the mail back, and we will put that property on hold for the moment and not inspect it unless we're in the area, and we'll just verify that information that they provided to us. But that's just one way of being proactive yourself as a landlord, and just making sure you have all these things in order before the city even contacts you, or if the city contacts you within the year. Enforcement. If a property fails inspection, the county initiates enforcement measures. We initiate enforcement measures through violations, ticketing, courts, referrals to the county at times. But this is some ways. If you can go to the next slide. So this is just a screenshot of that self-certification pamphlet that landlords would be getting to their property, and it just goes through every single checkbox that's the New York State certified building inspector goes through. And this is something we're going to be expecting back, and we will make sure to verify the information once we receive it or we're in the area. If you go to the next slide. So the benefits of the new approach: PRI programs benefit surrounding neighborhoods and the broader community by addressing blight, so that property values are maintained and available housing stock is preserved. Maintaining property value preserves the local tax base and encourages a creation of preservation of better quality of life standards for all residents in the city of Buffalo. Creates affordable and efficient renovation standards amongst the renovation community for the long term. And PRI programs benefit tenants by ensuring that all rental housing is inspected without requiring tenants to make a complaint. So that's huge for us, because vulnerable tenants, including low-income residents and elderly individuals and non-speaking immigrants, may live in the worst housing condition possible, but often don't make complaints about it. And that's something we've found very common, specifically since we started our pilot program last year, is that a lot of tenants were just afraid to even communicate with us, because they were afraid that their landlord was going to retaliate, or just for having communication or letting us in their home. But we assured them that that wouldn't happen, and that we would keep a close eye on all that communication we would do after an inspection. And now with our PRI program and the new legislation, we have been able to make sure our ducks are in order when it comes to our fair housing officer to be involved if an issue would arise. So our fair housing officers know what to do and how to defend our tenants when it comes to a landlord that will retaliate for having their home inspected by us. Landlords also benefit as it gives them a certification to demonstrate that at a date certain their property was up to code. If a tenant causes damages, which does happen to the property, they have evidence that previous quality and compliance was met by them and certified by an inspector. So that is huge. And yes, if we can go to the next slide. Sorry. So evictions, the department will order tenants to vacate under only 4 circumstances. That's any structure is at imminent risk of collapsing, structure in partial collapse, or threatened from explosive materials or defective mechanical equipment, thus poses a threat to safety. And that's us. Yes, the next one, please. Community partner resources, the community block blitz. For now, name is pending. We're going to change that. It sounds a little too aggressive, but we're working with our community partners right now to come up with a better name for our boots on the ground outreach. And the block blitz, as it's called right now, will serve as a direct one-on-one approach for our residents in the specific targeted area to address any concern with neighborhoods or their own residents. Connect is, we're partnered with Connect. They're the community health workers, community health worker network. And the reason we are very excited about this block blitz approach, this one-on-one, is because we are teaming up with this community health workers to help us assist those tenants that are even afraid at coming to the door. So if they see a community health worker from the neighborhood, someone they already interacted with about getting other different types of resources at the door with us, it would benefit. It would be a win for everybody, because it'll provide that comfortability for the landlord or the tenant, and it would give us the access that we need to make sure the homes are up to date and they are getting the resources they need. And it'll help us identify if these tenants or landlords qualify for any of the housing rehab programs that we have, or any other one, if there's a child that's been poisoned with lead. If we can go to the next slide. So public rehab services. I know you guys spoke about it, but it's pretty much Stand Up Buffalo is, and currently that's our main drive. I'm gonna skip over this slide. If you can go to the next. So Stand Up Buffalo, and if you guys folks can talk about it a little bit more on Stand Up Buffalo, but it's basically it's make your home health and safety a priority during and after COVID-19. It will provide rehab services to individuals that need it, and how would I say, the main driver for our approach currently is going to be the funds we have to back up these communities we are interacting with. And with Stand Up Buffalo, it has pre-selected areas where it could bring those funds in. And additionally, as the year goes on, we'll keep looking for more funds. We have a revolving loan fund in the works. I know there are other communities like the Preservation Board has their own revolving loan fund, but we're going to combine all those and just bring them to light and bring those resources to light when we are in those neighborhoods. If you go to the next slide, it's these are the phone numbers. You don't specifically have to just call the area where you live. You can call any of these organizations if you're in the city of Buffalo. And if you can go to the next one, and lead paint hazard reduction is available to you. So it's through Bureau. So if you can see here, the Upper West Side and the Schiller Park area are going to be our main focus for their PRI program. Because again, these funds are driven specifically, these HUD funds are driven specifically for these two areas as it is right now, but there are also other funds for the Old First Ward area, because it's also an area that needs the resources. If you can go to the next slide. This is neighbor, is this, do we have representatives from this organization here? Neighborhood Works?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so this is a revolving loan fund for individuals living in single and doubles. But it is a revolving loan fund through Neighborhood Works Community Partners. But it's also a great resource to look into. It's just an added on, but that's about it. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or anything that they would like to ask me? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
the time
much.
today, and I hope it was clear enough.
It was. Thank you. I'll now introduce our next and our final presenter, Thomas Muscarella, who is the Senior Public Health Sanitarian for Erie County. He is the current director of the Lead Poisoning Prevention Program and serves on the local lead task force. He's also a member of the New York State Governor's Lead Poisoning Advisory Council. Take it away, Thomas.
Thank you. How's everybody? I've been doing involved with lead for almost 30 years now, and it's gotten a lot better, but it's still problematic, and we're working to get through that with our partnership with the city of Buffalo and the other agencies around town. So thanks, Mike, for that great presentation, and doing a really good job about that, and your programs are great. So I'm not going to repeat anything he said, other than lead poisoning is bad, and it does not, it's a negative effect on all children that get it, and it just doesn't let them reach their full potential. So everything we do here is really about the kids and helping them to see the best life that they possibly can see and getting lead out of their life. So our programs that we have are multiple. We have what we call our Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program. That's the program that responds to children with lead poisoning. It's been around for more than the 30 years I've been here. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be around for a while longer just because of the age of the housing in the city of Buffalo. Right now, we respond to children with levels of 5 micrograms per deciliter of lead or higher. Both medical case management and environmental intervention. The environmental intervention is where we go out and we perform a full lead paint EBL investigation, elevated blood lead level investigation in the house that the child lives in primarily. And we, through interview, look for other sources, which Mike went through, and any other houses that the child would spend significant amount of time in. So grandma's house or a daycare center or friend's house, anything like that. It's a very thorough investigation, and we really try to find all sources of potential lead that are affecting this child's health to get their levels down and as close to zero as possible. The couple of the other programs we have are their primary prevention programs. One is New York State grant funded and one is Erie County funded. So we service the entire county, but our focus for the grant program is in the city of Buffalo. There are several zip codes that are considered high risk for lead poisoning in the city, with their 14207 through 14215. East side, west side, pretty much. The levels of lead poisoning in those areas exceed the state's average levels in other counties. And previously, I'm not sure if this is still correct, we had 4 of the top 10 zip codes for lead poisoning in New York State. So that's not a good statistic. We really don't want that one. But we're working hard to make sure we're doing the best we can. Over the years, we've gotten our testing rates up to 75, 80% of the children, which is fantastic. Statewide average is around 50, 60. So we're there, we're getting the kids tested. We're still working at it to get more of them tested. And then with our primary prevention programs, we really want to focus on getting into those houses before these kids are poisoned and stop it from happening. So, you know, our approach is multifaceted on that. We have one approach where we target high-risk neighborhoods within these high-risk zip codes and perform a door-to-door activity, doing a lead paint inspection with our X-ray fluorescent or XRF unit at all of the houses. This is a non-invasive, non-destructive way to test for lead, and it's a definitive answer whether it's there or not. Currently, we're in zip code 14210 doing this activity, and we'll be moving on shortly into another area. This program's been in place, I believe, since 2008, and we've inspected probably in the neighborhood of 10,000 houses. So it's a good positive thing, and it is helping neighborhoods, and it's helping kids not to be poisoned. The what we call the Lead Primary Initiative, that's the program that runs countywide and within the other zip codes of the city of Buffalo, doing the same thing, responding to complaints, working with agencies such as this one to do education, do outreach, to get referrals, to get out to these houses and talk to the parents or the new parents or the pregnant mom to let them know about lead poisoning and that it's an issue and they should be concerned about it, and tell them the things they can do in their house to make it as safe as possible, and then perform visual assessments or XRF assessments to put owners and managers, landlords on notice that there is lead on that house or there's potential for lead in that house, and they need to do what needs to be done to correct it. And of course, all of that needs to be done in a lead safe manner, which Mike talked about with the EPA's RRP, renovator painting, and I can't think of the last P, I'm blanking. Of course, it teaches people who are doing work on houses to do it in a lead safe manner to protect the occupants of the structure and the workers that are performing the activity. It's a good course. It's a one-day long course. It teaches you a lot of information in one day, and you walk out with a certificate and the ability to do lead safe work practices legally in Erie County and across the country. It's a nationwide program. We teach it. It's currently open to all property owners that are under notice from us or the city of Buffalo to take the class. There's a minor cost. It's about $100 to help us cover costs for supplies, and we do provide lunch. So it's relatively cheap from us. It's a couple, $250, $300 elsewhere. So if it's available, I highly recommend coming to see us. And then with an asterisk, our building is going under construction in June 1st, and our classes are going to be limited. We are pursuing online classes. We just don't know if it's going to work, but that is hopefully a potential, and we still will be offering these throughout the summer because it is a needed, required course, and we would love to provide that to the people around town. There's a second course we offer. It's called Lead Safe Work Practices. This course is a version of RRP, but it's for people that are doing work in the houses they live in. It's the only time it counts. So if you're an owner occupied house and you're doing work in the unit you live in, you can do lead safe work practices. If you expand to your rental unit upstairs, you need to be RRP certified. There's a fine line between that, but the law is very clear for that. So anytime you're doing it, basically you're collecting rent, RRP. If it's for yourself, lead safe work practices. We also have a HUD grant, similar to the city of Buffalo's HUD grant, but ours services the entire county, focusing in the city of Buffalo. You do need to have income eligibility requirements, a child 6 or under living or spending significant time there, just as the cities. Any programs that come to us, any referrals come to us that fall into the city program, we do make that referral over to them to allow them to service that area, to work together as a good partner. And one last program we have that fits into the healthy homes model that Mike discussed is our Healthy Neighborhoods program. That's been around for about 45 years. Excellent program, educational, very little enforcement. We target neighborhoods, zip codes, and areas within to do in-home health and safety education. Make sure your home is the safest place you can be. It is a place that a lot of people spend more time there than they do anywhere else. So in my world, it should be the safest place you are. And we hope to help make it that way. We talk about smoking and indoor air quality, and we provide smoke detector if needed, a CO detector if needed, lead poisoning control we talk about, and we talk about deteriorated paint, identify it, give the occupants some tips. We will notify the owner that there's issues there and they need to address them. And it also will work targeted, and we do take referrals. Anybody in the city of Buffalo that calls up and asks for this type of visit, we can offer it now. COVID has been hampered activities over the last year or so, but we are back and up and running at full capacity, doing all things that we normally do with COVID safety in mind. That is really my presentation as a whole. The number is there. You can call, ask any questions, make referrals, request inspections. We'll come out, we'll talk to you, we'll then help you with your lead poisoning situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you to all of our presenters today and for attending the lead safety workshop.